White scientists that study trichinosis, or the infected pig, consider certain animals to be closely related to human beings. They consider these creatures to be the rat, the cat, and the dog, or what they scientifically refer to as synanthropic hosts, because rats live around human beings. When human beings discard waste, it attracts rats. Where there's rats, there's going to be attraction of cats. Where there's cats, there's going to be attraction from dogs. Okay, so dogs will literally eat the cat. The cats will eat the rat. But even deeper than that, when we look at the root of this, it goes back that there are fleas that eat and feed off of rats. That's how the bubonic plague spread in Europe. However, there are creatures that eat the fleas, known as worms. Little unseen worms, but if you had a microscope, you'll see them right there in the soil in your backyard. And these little tiny worms kill the fleas. They eat the fleas. But there's bacteria that eats those tiny little worms. And that bacteria is right there in the soil that you walk upon. And you could take it all the way back to the very atoms of life, and you'll find that, as our ancestors taught us, everything has an opposite, or what Yakub called the law of polarity. So, when the pig has its filth and you throw it in a garbage can, now wild animals get to that, and the trichina worm just starts spreading all over the place, unfortunately. So the Bible and the Holy Quran teaches us not to eat the flesh of the swine, nor to even touch his carcass. There are ancient creatures where these pigs that we have today descended from. These ancient creatures are not monsters. They're not some spooky evolutionary creatures in the sense that most people think. There is no spookiness when we talk about the word mathematics, or evolution as they call it, meaning that there's no mystery in evolution in the sense of species. Species change, human beings change. Like the law of environmental heredity can be seen, and I can show it to you in like 5 days, 10 days, a month. Go outside and just run barefoot. Go outside and do some pull-ups. Do some pull-ups today. Do 100 pull-ups today on a pull-up bar. Do 100 every day for 30 days, and then look at your hands. Your hands will literally build calluses. Your skin will mathematically mutate and get thicker because you're tearing your flesh, and your flesh is too soft to do the pull-ups. So what do nature do? What do your mind do? It toughens up the skin cells. It changes the atoms to vibrate those atoms to make your hands stronger. If you lift weights, your muscles will build up. If you keep eating, you'll get fatter and fatter and fatter. You will transform. Okay? So you had small and great creatures all over the planet Earth for antiquity. And some of these creatures were way more larger than a modern day pig, way more ferocious. Like if you've seen these ancient ancestors, you'd be like, oh, you're not going to be kissing on them. If you take a modern day pig and put it next to a modern day hippopotamus, even told ungulates, as the scientists refer to them, you'll look at that pig, you'll look at that aardvark, you'll look at that anteater, and you'll start to realize, wait a minute, there's a lineage here. Now, I mean, there's a link here. I mean, it may be something we may not understand because of the transformation of different species, but those species don't turn into another species, meaning not in a spooky sense. It's not in the sense of like, I'm just using this hypothetically speaking. It's not in the sense of like a human being turns into a bat and fly away in the air, or in antiquity, a bat was flying around and turned into a human being. But at the same time, we have to understand that in antiquity, we say that once upon a time, the universe did not exist. And Master Fard Muhammad explained to us that right there takes away the impossibility. How can this or that be impossible when we say the universe at one time did not exist and now today the universe exists? This teaches us that from the mind of the original man, he sparked the primal atom. It wasn't an atom like it is today. We look at hydrogen. No, it's something smaller than hydrogen. It'd be like, well, there's photons, there's quarks. There are things smaller than that are undefined, unknown. And if you look at those, you'll see it's something smaller than that. So we don't waste our time trying to find an origin for the creator of creation, alcoholic. We don't try to find an origin for the original man. He has no beginning nor ending. He's older than the sun, moon, and stars. So these older boars, wild boars, as they was known and classified, and we got hogs, or what we got the domesticated modern day pigs. Those old ones had more hair on them. If you seen four of them laying down on the ground and you took a picture from on top of a roof, that looked like a bunch of rats laying down together. You see, they had the hair just like the rat, looked just like a dog, had the features of a cat. Now, I mean, in nature, there's a roundworm, a hookworm, and a tapeworm. Now, that roundworm loves to prey upon those rats. Now, I mean, those roundworms are so tiny that you can't even see them hardly with your naked eye. You got to get a microscope. They go around inside the soil too. And those little creatures, they may not be too harmful to me and you. I remember years ago, I think it was the History Channel or Discovery, I don't recall which, but they had a special showing all these creatures that live on human skin and in the human body on a microscopic level. It looks like a jungle, I mean, on the body temple. Even though your body's clean, but we need helpful bacteria and helpful parasites and helpful germs and things in and on the body. Otherwise, we would not have been able to survive this long, you see? So when we talk about the grafting of these animals, we're not talking about anything spooky or supernatural. We're talking about cause and effect. We're talking about going from a fraction to a whole. The messenger said Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam. There are many types of flies, like the black soldier fly, or your common house fly for that matter. But these flies love to eat that moist flesh of the pig, that swine that has all that ammonia and sulfur inside of it, because it allows the larva from the flies to live and to go through all their cycles and become brand new flies. The Center for Disease Control's links the rat to the pig, and the Bible in the book of Isaiah, chapter 66, links the swine to the mouse or the rat, just as Messenger Elijah Muhammad teaches us. Scientists call these tiny microscopic worms that eat the fleas nematodes, and they are directly part and parcel of the grafting of the swine through the bacteria, then the worms or the nematodes, and then the rat, the fleas, then the rat, cat, and dog. MDT has been used successfully to treat a variety of wounds, including pressure ulcers, diabetic foot ulcers, burn wounds, and crush injuries. Scientists calculate that the average success rate is about 70%. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us in 1972 in How to Eat to Live, book number 2, that the pig has never been a food, that the pig is actually a medicine. And he gives us an example by explaining that you can put pork on an infected wound on the body and heal it. Scientists call this MDT, or magnet therapy or in scientific terms, maggot debridement therapy. But MDT, or magnet therapy, as we call it in the hood, is where people that are infected with diseases use worms to eat the infection of the dead flesh. You could go to Philadelphia and see this, sad to say, down Kensington and Allegheny, where many of the people are suffering from open sores because of the toxins and the drugs that they're using. And you'll literally see physical magnets inside of their wound. And they leave these living magnets in there because it helps ease the discomfort and pain by eating up the dead flesh, eating up the infection that's in there. It's not my need or intention to shock or offend you, but I wanted to show you a piece of pork that had these magnets in there. A lot of people think that these huge magnets come from the pork, but actually it comes from the flies that lay their eggs or larvae inside of the pork. Pork is very moist and it contains sulfur and ammonia, so that when the flies' eggs can go inside this pork, they can eat the pork or this dead flesh and grow into healthy adult flies and keep that cycle going on. So in antiquity, our people would use animal flesh. Sometimes they use cows' skin and chicken and other creatures, but nothing attracts flies as far as flesh better than that swine. This is a photo of a doctor that treated a patient that had a foot infection using magnets or worms. This science is still used to this day, except they use what they call sterilized maggots or clean maggots. Some doctors in the past as well as the present also uses leeches on human flesh to help the patient heal. So that concept is not something new or something spooky. It's an ancient science that is still used in this day and time, but in a more practical way. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video. Some doctors grind up magnets into magnet powder so that the patient can ingest it or eat it and heal from within. But it's not as effective as the actual magnets being placed on the body. Ancient cultures from ancient Kemet or Black Egypt, from all over the planet Earth, I'm talking Australia, I'm talking about the Mayan civilization, they all understood that practical, scientific, and natural healing process of using things in nature to help an infection on the body. They may use different animals. Sometimes they would take a piece of cloth with animals' blood on it, attract the flies to it. Once it get infected with the magnets, they'll put that onto the wound. So they knew that science. And we now understand how this science works. Some of y'all might want to turn your head, but this is an actual infected patient that had the larva eating the infection in their body, and it's going to help them heal right back up. In the 1800s, during the Napoleonic Wars, Napoleon's chief surgeon, known as Baron Dominique Jean Larrey, he was the chief surgeon, and he used the flesh of swine or pork and used the larva to help soldiers heal, because he noticed soldiers that was stabbed or, fell and got injured or what have you, had diseases. Those with the natural larva in their wounds would actually heal up quicker than those that was being treated and cleaned and wrapped up and things of that nature there without antibiotics back then. It is reported that Napoleon said to him, if an army were to build a monument to just one man, it would be Larry. All the wounded are his family. This is a painting of them back then in the 1800s. This is the surgeon actually treating men on the battlefield, him with a leg actually on the table. You see the wounded patient back there laying on a cot, So there's a picture of Napoleon with him. Now, I mean, so that science was known back in the 1800s. This is his actual military memoirs as far as the surgery and him using the grafting of animal flesh or larvae to help clean and heal wounds. U.S. Dr. William Bear was a United States orthopedic surgeon or bone doctor who served over in Europe during World War One in 1914 to 1918. And he also used maggots to help clean the wounds of wounded soldiers for the United States of America. And he wrote some very deep scientific notes about what he observed and learned from this science. This is some of his notes right here. There are many grafted pigs in Chester County. This is a piece of pork with worms in it, and we actually just went past the farms today that had some pigs on it. So we're going to now turn to a section of Messenger Elijah Muhammad's book, From How to Eat to Live, so that we can go deeper into the spiritual science of this grafted pig. Make sure you tune in and don't miss part 2 of this series. Flowers. Lots and lots of different flowers. Peace and blessings, family. Today we're going to decode a very rare and often overlooked and misunderstood aspect of the life-giving teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as to why he teaches us that pork or the swine or the pig is actually a medicine. Yes, you heard me right. The pig was never designed to be a food. It was originally designed to clean up filth. And for thousands of years, ancient civilizations such as different parts of Europe and even as far as Australia, even the people in ancient South America, the Mayan civilization, they all knew and used the pig as medicine. Let me give you a quote to put things in perspective. This is How to Eat to Live, book number 2, page number 102, published in 1972. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, and I quote, "Since there is a poison in it, the flesh of swine will cure most any kind of disease. Take a slice of this fatty and salty pork, and you have a boil on you someplace full of fever. Lay a piece of fat on it, and it will soon draw it out. It is a medicine and not food. This is not all it will do in a curing way. I do not have time and space here to put this in this article. But the white man knows, and he will bear me witness that I am teaching you the truth of this hog. Medical scientists and our own doctors are fast learning since I have been writing this article on how to eat to live, and are now cooperating with me and agreeing with me that the hog is a poison that we should not eat, though they may be eating it themselves. But they have to acknowledge the truth. Some of them are intelligent enough now for the last few years to start getting away from eating it. Who wants to eat the combination of these fleshes? Cat, rat, and dog. This is what the hog is made of. The dog, cat, and rat. And the Bible teaches you that he is from a mouse. Read Isaiah chapter 66, verse 17. That reads in a meaning. They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh, and the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith the Lord. The so-called American Negro is a product of evil and filth, produced by the white man of slavery. He is more a true believer in the evils and filth of the white man than the white man himself. As it is written in the Bible, when he, meaning the devil, makes a convert, he makes him 7 times more the child of hell than himself. This is the so-called American Negro. He is turned into a person 7 times worse than he originally was. So, do not think that you are divinely safe eating pork after you think you have cooked it so done you have killed the pork worms in it. The flesh alone, not to say eating it, is divinely prohibited to touch. This the white man knows. But what does he care? He eats anything. Eat to live and come follow me. So let me echo this part right here again. The messenger said about this swine, he said, the flesh of swine will cure most any kind of disease. Take a slice of this fatty and salty pork, and you have a boil on you someplace full of fever. Lay a piece of fat on it, and it will soon draw it out. It is a medicine and not food. This is not all it will do in a curing way. Now, he couldn't go into the finer details because he said, quote, I do not have time and space here to put this in this article. So here, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad clearly teaches us about this treatment for an infection on the human body, something as filthy as a boil. He explained to us that it's something about pork or swine that can draw the toxins out. Now, scientists in this day and time realize that there is a tiny little worm inside of pork flesh known as the trichina worm. Tri means 3 and china mean easternly or orient. Now, there's this grafted worm inside of it. Now, there is a deadly bacteria in the earth, in the soil. Like when you go outside in the grass and see some regular dirt, there's some powerful bacteria in there that literally eat up tiny little worms that's inside the earth. You see how you see fishing worms, you see the big worms. There's unseen little tiny microscopic worms that's in the soil too. And bacteria come eat those worms up. And those little tiny worms will literally eat up fleas. And those little tiny fleas eat up bigger fleas. And those fleas eat up rats. You see? There's a formula here. Here you got fleas that is living off of this rat. Here you got cats living off these rats. Here you got dogs living off these cats. So here we have the rat, cat, and the dog mutated into not just a roundworm, hookworm, and tapeworm, but into this 3-trichina worm, this super powerful worm. In ancient civilizations, such as different parts of Europe, all the way to the other side of the world, as the Aboriginal Australians, even the ancient Mayan civilizations wrote about this. They all realized something. Even the United States surgeons, Napoleon, top surgeon, his personal surgeon in the early 1800s, he realized like when soldiers was in a battlefield, somebody lose their eye, arm, a leg, they get shot, they get stabbed with a bayonet or whatever, and they got all this pus and filth and, infection on their body. They noticed that if you took a piece of pork and put it on a wound, it healed up better than all the sterile stuff they was doing. And they couldn't understand that. And some of these doctors, even in the United States of America, you had white American surgeons that literally realized like, yo, it's something about these wounds that maggots seem to heal them up better than the medicine. You see? I personally, growing up in the ghetto, I knew people that used to get abscesses on their arms and stuff, and they was like addicted to heroin, the drugs. And I seen this one brother, and he had like holes in his arms with living maggots in it. You can see this in 2024, sad to say, in people's legs and in their arms, on their necks, on their face in Kensington and Allegheny in North Philadelphia, where I grew up at. You go down North Philly right now, sad to say, you'll see these maggots all in these people's sores. You'll see it over Puerto Rico, know what I mean? And the people addicted to the drugs is not so high that they don't realize it. They just realize that the maggots, for some reason, help eat the dead flesh. It eats up the infection and stop the itching and the toxins that's in their body, you see? So it's not really just the nature of the pig with the trichina worm, the unseen, but it's also the nature of the seen. Meaning what? Meaning that pork meat is unique in the sense that it's full of fat, protein, sulfur, and ammonia. Yes, regular ammonia, regular sulfur. So that ammonia and that sulfur in this meat, with all this fat and all this protein, in a warm environment, it just like immediately has a potent and pungent, stinking smell that different species of flies absolutely love it. They'll fly right on down. Not just your common house flies, but the big flies, the green hair flies, they all fly right down and be like, yo, they analyze that pork and be like, yo, this is perfect. Like say you had a person with a boil, or a person
that was had an abscess or a wound. Know what I mean? And you put a piece of raw pork on there, the flies from all they'll smell that from miles away. They'll come zoom right in, and they'll lay that little eggs in there, that larva in there. And in order for maggots to live, the food has to be moist. And unlike chicken and beef and fish and other meats, pork has a real high moisture content. So a piece of swine literally stay wet for days. Know what I mean? It's like growing up in North Philly, I used to have to take the garbage out. I worked in stores where we had to take the garbage out. And when you take that garbage out and they dump that metal trash can, I used to, as a child, I used to see the maggots all at the bottom of it just squirming all around. I used to be like, and we used to have to get some bleach or ammonia or something and scrub that stuff out just to clean and disinfect those cans before we put them back. Know what I mean? So I seen these larvas, I seen these maggots actually eating people and eating filth, eating dead animals, eating dead cats, dead dogs, dead rats, all over the ghettos of the wilderness of North America. Now, I mean, those of you that grew up in North Philadelphia back in the 70s, and we used to go down Germantown Avenue to the Avenue movie, you know why. You're sitting there watching a movie, you feel something hit your leg, boom, everybody screaming, putting it. When you go to movies, you just straight put your feet up on the chair in front of you because you know rats going to be running off through the drawer, eating popcorn that people drop, chocolate candy. And when you come out the movie, you see giant rats all on the side. I ain't talking about some people think we exaggerate. We mean huge rats, like giant rats, rats that cats are scared of. I mean, I seen some real. I used to think that they was like raccoons or something at nighttime. You walking down the street, you just see this giant, like, what the heck is that? You throw a bottle or something or a rock, it don't move. Like what? I mean, some people used to shoot them. I mean, huge rats that attack. Know what I mean? So this rat, cat, and dog is a deep cycle in nature because everything in nature has the law of polarity. It has an opposite. You see? So these ancient civilizations and soldiers on the battlefield, the United States military, they were so impressed with it that after World War One, they literally start recommending using so-called sterile maggots or cleaner maggots. Now, I mean, because you don't want to use filth to clean filth in a filthy environment because that's a complicated, it's easy to get reinfected and things of that nature there. So they learned to be more scientific with it, but that still didn't change the natural science of Mother Nature, where you put that piece of pork on that sore, it's going to attract these flies, and the flies going to lay these unseen little eggs, and they're going to hatch and turn to little tiny worms. And many people that don't know the science and think that those little maggots are actually trichina worms. No, the trichina worm is unseen. The trichina worms is eating the maggots, but the maggots is eating the dead flesh of the person or thing that is feasting upon. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has a science here when he teaches us about these types of ancient remedies. Now, I mean, you had not just house flies, but what they call the blowfly. The blowfly was real common with this type of stuff. So these type of creatures would actually have larvae that eat up the dead parts of the flesh and to help clean it out. So when the surgeon come in or the doctor come in, he find like, the parts that actually had the pork or the worms or the maggots in there eating it actually dried up and healed up faster than the parts that didn't. Think that over. Thank you for your time and attention in today's subject on how the pig was made. This was part 1. Make sure you don't miss part 2. And if you would like to order my book on how the pig was made that gives you the high sciences on this subject, make sure you send just $9.95 by Cash App to Alif Ministries.
I'll put a link in the description. Thank you for your support. The struggle continues.